Call the meeting to order, and I'd like to apologize for being a couple minutes late. My watch is off. Everybody should have gotten on the email. Everybody should have gotten on the email the agenda and the minutes. We need to clean up the last couple of weeks worth of minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to read over those? And if so, we would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion. I second.
Any further discussion on the minutes? If not, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, approve the minutes as presented.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Now, what we're going to do today is pretty much the same as we did last week. We're going to see some reports from the subcommittees. We have on here a report, item 3 on the agenda, report from the Future Metrics Subcommittee. Do we want to change the order in which we do this so that we do, instead of future metrics, maybe we start with the current data subcommittee? Would that be reasonable? Can we change our agenda to do that? I guess I need a motion to do that.
I would move that we amend the agenda to reverse the order of the committee reports.
Okay.
I second.
Motion on the floor is to move agenda item 4 to 2C. 2C. Is there any further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor of changing the agenda? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. With that being done, Chief Canuck.
So from our subcommittee meeting, I do not have a presentation today. It's just not enough hours to get it all done. However, what I can go over is we have reviewed budgets, we have reviewed personnel trucks, truck placement as far as the current state, and times. And the key that I think the key thing that I want to focus in on, as an aside, we'll have the presentation ready for the next one, or I can email it out, whatever the protocol is. I'll make sure that we follow that. But at any rate, the key that we're getting down to, which is going to be necessary for the future committee, is the times. We spent a lot of time defining what the times were, and we have a standard for that. And then the next thing we did was we took the toolkit data that is provided by EMS, state EMS, and compared that against times that Larry had out of the CAD, where there was differences from number of calls analyzed. The toolkit that EMS uses is probably about 100% more or double what we were seeing from the CAD perspective. However, there's a lot that goes into what the state chooses versus what we chose from the CAD perspective. From the CAD perspective, we looked at information that showed a dispatch and a transport or patient contact, whereas the EMS looks at for 1 year that totaled about 5,000 calls, 6,000, it depended on what you were looking at. EMS would be looking at about 10,000 to 11,000, so that shows you the differences in between. The good part is, though, and the part I want to focus on, is the times themselves. As we went through the state data and the EMS, the CCOM data, we found that they were relatively close, and relative being within 5%. The farthest that we saw of the data that we analyzed between the two was a 1 minute difference, and that was out of a 12-minute time frame. I think it was the arrival time to the hospital. So what I would like to do is, rather than trying to get into the details without having something to show you, I want to let you know that we as a subcommittee agree that the times are close enough. There's enough correlation between the two that we feel that the toolkit time should be what would be used for the Futures Committee for them to go forward. And I would like to be able to provide that to them ahead of our next meeting as a group, just so they can continue on. So that's where we are.
Okay. And I know that your group has supplied some data.
We have.
They had requested over the last week.
What
What would be the proper procedure for that? Can we email that out to the group this week, as long as you get a copy of it to enter into the minutes? Okay, so whenever you get your statistical data together, just shoot that email out to the group. Actually, if you just send it to Laura, she has the group's email.
Right.
And that probably would be the proper channel for procedure.
Yeah, the other thing that we have is, from a mapping perspective, the call volume per grid along with the time. So I think it gives the picture that was given to us the last time on the board was good. I think this gives a little more clarity as to why we saw so much reds in the areas that a lot of people were expecting to see greens. It really defines it better. So the pictures are definitely worth 1,000 words, and my apologies to the committee for not having that ready today. But
Well, I think we understand that's a pretty aggressive timeline that we had. And,
the group,
hours in the day.
in the group's defense, they provided the material. It was it's squarely on my shoulders that it didn't get completed before today. So,
Well, we appreciate it. Any questions for Chief Knupp relative to the current data group?
Can a member of your group present it to the future metrics maybe Monday?
What's
To make sure we're on the same path.
I don't really know what.
Tuesday.
I was going to say, I don't really know what day they meet. So,
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
I mean, it's only like 7 meetings a week that we're rolling.
Yeah.
I'm having quite the problem keeping track of where I'm supposed to be. So I'm doing my best. So. Chief, could that be a possibility that on Tuesday, and I don't know what y'all's meeting schedule is, if you're scheduling anything for this week, or
We
if you're
have not.
comfortable where you guys are at, if that's a possibility, and I'm assuming on Tuesday, Chief Bailey, that's 9 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
I know you got one in the morning, one in the evening, but, or afternoon, so
9 a.m. in this room.
9 a.m. in this room on Tuesday, would that be a possibility?
I will check and see.
We've done a lot of the same, taken a lot of the same information, and I assume it's from the same source, just to make sure we're on the same page.
No problem. Let me get the calendar up there and see. I'm clear that morning.
So we can do that. We can have Chief Knupp come in on Tuesday and present the current data's numbers to the future group. And like I said, I know that they've supplied numbers over the last week that was requested out of that future group. So that's already kind of been going on. It'll just be his presentation that he's going to email out to everybody. That he will.
Yeah, the numbers that we provided to the other committee were a subset, looking at, was it 2013, or excuse me, 14, January through June, I believe it was. So
Okay.
it's definitely a subset,
Right.
just so they can start, but we'll have the others. And what I do need to clarify with our group, which numbers we were talking about.
Okay.
Larry was telling me that I may have written something down incorrectly, so I want to go back and verify that with our group of which set of numbers, be it EMS or
CAD numbers.
CAD numbers, yeah.
Okay, good enough. Any other question or discussion on current data? Okay, any other group members on that group got anything? If not, we'll move on to the next report. That would be Chief Bailey and the future group.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the Future Metric Subcommittee has now met twice weekly for multiple hour sessions over the past 2 weeks. I'm extremely appreciative of the sacrifices made by everybody on those on that committee, because it's an important topic, and I can assure you and the other committee members that our meetings have been far from a rubber stamp. As a group, we do not collectively know all the words to Kumbaya. And, everybody has been very forthright in expressing their opinion, contributing input, and making sure that all facets of our deliberations are clearly understood.
Good.
We The good thing about it, though, is that we have reached consensus many times and on common ground, and that has been very quite productive for us. Over our period of time together, we've reviewed data provided by our own data subcommittee, and again, Chief Canup, we appreciate your help with that. Larry's group at CCOM, GIS, State of North Carolina, and we've compared that data to available data for rural, suburban, and urban communities, around the country in an effort to evaluate what we believe are reasonable performance expectations and baselines for provision of EMS services. In an effort to address the public concern over our provision of services, we've concentrated our deliberation on metrics at this point in time, specifically on the provision of emergency transports. Depending on where you're from, whether that's the Code 3 transports or the Priority 1 transports or whatever, because those obviously are of greatest concern to the public. During our meeting last week, we mentioned the challenge of developing a system of metrics without a model on which to base those metrics or those measurements on. But the alternate point was also made that the model should be constructed based on the service expectations by the contracting entity. Well, over the last week, we reviewed 2 ideas for deployment models, and I will say those are ideas for deployment models that could be used to establish those reasonable baselines and set performance benchmarks for Union EMS during the contract term. I mentioned this fact with the qualifier that our group did not set out to create a formal deployment model. Rather, we needed a working framework from which to structure our own metrics and develop our own work product for use. One of the proposals came from our own emergency services director. The other came from Union EMS. Amazingly, they were substantially similar in scope and nature, indicating to our group that we were in general consensus on our expectations of service delivery. For the group's consideration, for yours and the group's consideration, if you so choose this morning, we are prepared to show you the basic framework of that model, if that's something that you would entertain. See, just so that you know the framework from which we're basing our.
We can do that at the pleasure of the group, and I think that's a good idea if we just show kind of what we're working from, to everybody in the room. That way, it's all out there as to what's going on with that. So I think that's.
If you want to do that, okay, cool. I think we can.
Or the motion on recess for just a second to hook it up, or can we do that real quick?
Yeah, we can do it real quick, I think, without taking a recess.
Okay. I didn't know how to do that.
Oh, okay, maybe we do need to take a recess. 5 minute recess.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor of a 5-minute break? Aye. Okay. Thank you.